Meanwhile, Bertie had raced into the station. "I won!" shouted Bertie. "I won!" And he waited eagerly for Thomas. He waited and waited. But Thomas had forgotten about the race. He was thinking about the children. "I can't let them down. I can't let them down." At last, Thomas puffed back into the big station. The station master gave Thomas's driver the box of medals. Then Thomas set off again. He arrived just in time. "Well done," said Sir Topham Hatt. "Thank you, sir," panted Thomas. Sir Topham Hatt presented the medals to the winners. "Congratulations." "Thank you, sir." The next day, Bertie and the medal winner arrived with a surprise for Thomas. A small boy presented him with a gold medal on a red ribbon. "You were very helpful at Sports Day." "So we thought you should have a medal of your own," added the boy. "My very own medal," said Thomas. "Thank you." "3 cheers for Thomas, the #1 engine. Hip, hip, hooray!" "But I still won the race," tooted Bertie. Thomas just peeped happily. Summer is a busy time on the island of Sodor. Vacationers have so much to see and do. There are trips to the seaside, balloon rides in the country, and a brass band playing in the park. One morning, Edward was in a hurry. He didn't even stop to say hello to Stepney. Thomas was pleased to see Edward. "What's up? Your smile's as broad as your smoke box." "I'm on my way to pick up the brass band," replied Edward. "The concert is tomorrow night." "Don't crack your smoke box," teased Thomas. Edward couldn't wait to hear the brass band play their wonderful music. He was so excited about meeting the brass band that he didn't notice the giant crane. It was unloading a huge ship's boiler. Suddenly, the crane swung the boiler and knocked Edward right off the track. Cranky had been watching. "You useless little engines are always in the way." Poor Edward. Sir Topham Hatt came immediately. "We will take you to the fitter's yard, and Bertie will have to meet the brass band instead of you." Edward was sad. That night, a raging storm rolled in. The fitters worked through the night trying to mend Edward. The rain pelted down. Now Edward felt sad and very damp. Morning came and Sir Topham Hatt arrived. "Please, sir," pleaded Edward, "will the fitters be finished soon?" "Not soon enough, and the band can't wait. I'm sorry, Edward. Bertie will take them to the concert." Edward felt worse than ever. Bertie collected the brass band and set off immediately. He bumped cheerfully along the country roads, but there was trouble ahead. Last night's storm had flooded the road. Bertie's driver decided to take a shortcut. but it was very muddy. Bertie's wheels did not like the mud. They scooted, they skated, they slid, they slipped. "I'm stuck," he groaned. No. Bertie revved his engine, but his wheels spun round and round. He couldn't budge. The brass band were worried. "We mustn't be late for our concert." "Tune up your tuba," cried the leader of the band. "We'll call for help." By now, Edward was mended and hooked up to his coaches. "I can hear music," said his driver. "That's not music," wheezed Edward. "That's an alarm." And they raced off to the rescue. The musicians were delighted to see their old friend. So was Bertie. "I'll get you to the concert in time," Edward cried. "Thank you," said the worried bandsman. That night, the concert was a great success. Everyone loved the music, especially Edward. It was a hot summer's day on the island of Sodor. The engines were busy taking freight cars full of slate from the quarry. The heat and dust made their axles ache. "We've shunted every freight car in the quarry today," wheezed Skarloey. "But I'm too thirsty to feel useful," complained Peter Sam. The summer sunshine made people thirsty, too. The refreshment lady was keeping very busy at the refreshment stand. The next day, Sir Topham Hatt had news for Peter Sam. "The refreshment lady needs a place for another refreshment stand." "I can find her a beautiful place." "I knew it. It will be a piece of cake." "But refreshment stands don't live in cakes." "It's just my way of saying it will be fun and easy to find the right place, dear." Peter Sam puffed along to the Woodland Way. And the old Castle Causeway. And the Whispering Waterfall. "Thank you, Peter Sam," said the refreshment lady. "But I don't know what to do. I can't make up my mind. What a shame I can't build a refreshment stand in each place." Peter Sam was very disappointed. He didn't feel useful. That night there was a storm. Lightning flashed and thunder crashed. The rain poured down. All the engines were talking excitedly about the storm, except Peter Sam. He was thinking about the refreshment lady's stand. The next morning, Sir Topham Hatt came to the sheds. "Peter Sam, I want you to go and help Rusty clear the storm damage." "Yes, sir," Peter Sam said, and hurried away. At last, he thought he could be really useful. Peter Sam soon found Rusty. The storm had swept the shed onto the line.
"Driver says this shed is useless now." It's not a shed, exclaimed Peter Sam. It's an old railway coach.
And that gave him an idea. Back at the yards, his driver spoke to Sir Topham Hatt.
Peter Sam thinks this old coach could be a refreshment stand.
I'll have Jem take a look. I'm sure he can repair it, agreed Sir Topham Hatt. Sir Topham Hatt was right. In no time at all, the old coach had turned into a refreshment stand on wheels. The refreshment lady could hardly believe her eyes.
Oh, it's beautiful. I told you it would be a piece of cake.
Sir Topham Hatt paused for a moment. With many cakes in it, I'm sure. Then he turned to Peter Sam. And you shall pull the refreshment stand special.
I'll be proud to, sir, replied Peter Sam.
Now the refreshment lady serves refreshments at all her favorite places. At Woodland Way, the old Castle Causeway, and Whispering Waterfall. Peter Sam is a happy engine.
I told you it would be a piece of cake.
Rheneas is a brave little engine who enjoys working in the mountains on the island of Sodor. Even though he is little, Rheneas loves feeling like a really useful engine. One day, Sir Topham Hatt came to see Rheneas. "I have a very important job for you," he boomed.
An important job, cried Rheneas. Oh, thank you, sir.
"You are to take some school children up into the mountains. You must make sure they have a wonderful time and are back in time for their lunch."
Yes, sir,
said Rheneas. But he was worried. He wasn't sure he was good enough to make the trip special. When Rheneas arrived at the station, the children and their teacher were waiting on the platform.
How am I going to make the Children's Day really special? He said to Rusty. You know the mountains better than any engine, said Rusty.
But Rheneas wasn't sure his best would be exciting enough. He felt like a very little engine indeed. Sir Topham Hatt had told Rheneas's driver to point out all the beautiful sights along the way. "This is Sodor Castle," called his driver. "It is very special and important." Rheneas saw the castle every day. He didn't think it was special or important.
I must think of something exciting to do, he puffed to himself.
"This is the valley view," said his driver. "And here's the viaduct." Rheneas was still unhappy. The trip didn't seem wonderful to him at all.
Must be special, he puffed.
Meanwhile, Rusty was working on the rocky ridgeline. Heavy rains had washed the ground from under the tracks.
These lines are too bumpy and uneven, said the foreman. The tracks must be closed for repairs. Must be special, must be special.
Rheneas was still trying to think of something that would make the children's trip special. He didn't know the linesman had forgotten to switch the points. Suddenly, Rheneas was on the wrong track.
Oh no! This line is closed for repairs! Bust my buffers!
Chuffed Rheneas.
Be careful, cried Rusty. The tracks are very bumpy.
Rheneas whooshed down the mountain like a roller coaster. The children cheered. Rheneas puffed up the rocky ridge with all his might. His coach clattered and bumped and bounced along behind. And the children oohed and ahed. Rheneas chuffed and puffed as hard as he could. He steamed across the trestle bridge. He was going so fast the teacher nearly lost her hat. Rheneas splashed under a waterfall. The children laughed happily. And the teacher covered her eyes. At last, they could see the station. Rheneas was very tired and worried. What would Sir Topham Hatt say?
Phew,
Said the teacher.
just in time for lunch.
It was the best school trip ever, cried the children. Sir Topham Hatt wasn't cross with Rheneas. He was happy, too. You gave the children a wonderful trip. You really are a very useful engine.
Oh, thank you, sir.
Puffed Rheneas proudly. Rheneas didn't feel like a little engine anymore. The engines on the mountain railway were excited. They were helping to build a new line. It would take visitors to even more beautiful places on the island of Sodor. Sir Topham Hatt arrived with important news. The grand opening is this afternoon. I want to see the new line from the air. Lady Hatt and I will arrive on Harold the helicopter. Just then, Skarloey chugged in. You're late for the announcement, complained Sir Topham Hatt. Really useful engines are never late. I'm sorry, sir. At the airfield, there was another problem. Engine trouble, said the pilot. Harold's not going anywhere today. Lady Hatt was most upset. But I've been looking forward to the grand opening all week. And I, my dear, will find a solution. And he did.
Topham, you cannot be serious. Me ride in this?
The wind direction is perfect. We'll be there in no time. Soon the hot air balloon rose into the sky. But Skarloey was upset.
All this extra work is going to make me late again.
The hot air balloon was floating peacefully through the sky. Lady Hatt was enjoying herself.
The new line looks splendid, she said.
Thank you, my dear, replied Sir Topham Hatt. Down the track, the workmen were still loading their ladders.
Hurry up! Hurry up! Skarloey puffed.
If Skarloey doesn't hurry, sighed Sir Topham Hatt, he'll be late again. All the engines were ready for the grand opening.
Where's Skarloey?
Rusty asked.
He promised to be on time, said Peter Sam.
At last, Skarloey was on his way. Then there was trouble. The balloon's flames suddenly went out. The air in the balloon cooled, and the balloon started to fall.
Hold tight,
the pilot called.
I want to get out, demanded Lady Hatt.
Not now, dear, said Sir Topham Hatt.
The balloon's going to land in the tree, cried Skarloey.
And it came down right in front of Skarloey.
There's Sir Topham Hatt.
My hat is ruined, cried Lady Hat. So is mine, said Sir Topham Hatt. Don't worry, called Skarloey's driver. We'll soon have you down. Am I glad to see you, Skarloey?
Thank you, sir.
Before long, Sir Topham Hatt and Lady Hat were safely on the ground. They boarded Skarloey's boxcar and set off at once. Everyone was waiting as Skarloey brought his important passengers to the grand opening. Sir Topham Hatt declared the new line open. With special thanks to Skarloey, he said, for helping us get here. Everyone cheered.
Even so, you were still late,
teased Rusty. I know, said Skarloey, but because I was late, Sir Topham Hatt was right on time. It was May Day on the island of Sodor, and the engines were celebrating. They knew there'd be music and lots of fun. The station was being decorated. Sir Topham Hatt said that the engines could be decorated too. I'm going to have flags and streamers, whistled Percy. I'm going to have a big red banner, whistled Thomas. What decorations will you have, Gordon? Asked Murdoch. Decorations aren't dignified for an important engine like me. I pull the express. Gordon was feeling insulted. Silly little engines, he grunted. Thomas was enjoying himself. He was bringing the maypole. The farmer's children waved. Thomas peeped happily as he passed by. Soon it was time for the decorating. Percy's driver was wrapping streamers and flags around his funnel. Thomas had a big red banner on his tanks. Even Murdoch was being decorated, although he was very shy about it.
We could have a contest for the best dressed engine,
suggested James. Just then, Gordon shunted in. A contest? He puffed. I'm bound to win any contest. You will have to be decorated, said James. This is a best-dressed engine contest. Not me, puffed Gordon. You'd never catch me looking so ridiculous. The engines felt splendid. But not Gordon. He was cross. Decorations aren't dignified. Huh? Who cares about a contest anyway? Further down his line, a colorful banner was strung across the bridge. Then, as Gordon steamed across the bridge, it came loose and wrapped around his firebox. Gordon couldn't see the line ahead. Gordon tried to whoosh the banner off, but it wouldn't budge. I can't see! He whistled loudly to his driver. Stop! You can't stop, Gordon, his driver called back. You're the express. Trevor was chugging slowly along with his load of apples for the children's apple bob. Trevor heard a whistle. He was going as fast as he could, but it wasn't fast enough. The apples were all smashed. James was the last engine to join the contest, or so he thought. "Here comes Gordon!" cried the passengers. "We didn't think you wanted to be decorated," teased Thomas. "I didn't," huffed Gordon. "Well, you're definitely the best-dressed engine," said James. All the engines agreed. Gordon was secretly pleased, but he didn't think it was dignified to say so. Silly Gordon.